involved with it and the community at large that is involved. Excuse me. The reserve is closest to Port Orford, obviously, but that doesn't mean that you're not a part of it, that the fish don't migrate between and so on and so forth. So I hope that Gold Beach considers themselves involved in the Marine Reserve and a part of the Marine Reserve. I have invitations here. Unfortunately, I only have a few, but I would like you all to come July 20th to our event in Port Orford, where we are presenting our emphasis is the fishing industry as well as the Marine Reserve, and how those two pieces fit together and are integral to each other. So I'd like you to attend that. I'll give you those. I have here also the brochure put out by ODF&W about what is a Marine Reserve. And this one speaks specifically about the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve, but obviously there are 5 Marine Reserves on the coast of Oregon. I'll hand those out to you as well. In my other hat, OSU Extension, I work for Miles Phillips, and he was sought after and brought up out of Texas to come to the South Coast and help create sustainable tourism through workforce development. My role with him is I design online training programs for workforce development. We have a guide and outfitters training program that teaches interpretive skills, group management, business management, those pieces, not focusing on their specialty areas of fishing or horseback riding or what have you, but focusing on the other component of their business. We also have the Community Ambassadors Program, which we have one project out right now, and it addresses Charleston, Coos Bay, and North Bend. But we are anxious to pick up other towns for you on that. And obviously Gold Beach would be one of them. And let's see, those two. We're writing a Marine Reserve training program right now that would be useful to the general public as well as interested parties, and it would be a good introduction possibly for policymakers that maybe don't know about the Marine Reserve. And the last program that I'll be writing probably this fall is for the caddies at Bandon Dunes, that they will have the natural history of the area and a history of the Bandon Dunes facility. All of these trainings are free and online. They're all, for instance, the Community Ambassador Program is about a half an hour. The Marine Reserve Training Program, there will be one for the entire state system and then one each for each of the reserves. They take about a half an hour to do. And these are things that people can use in the community to be more informed about the community when they speak with locals as well as guests to the area. It's just general knowledge about our area that can help promote and develop our understanding of our community. So I guess that's all I have to say. I would really like you to come to this party and bring anybody you want with you. It's an open invitation to the whole community.
Johnson,
yes.
You have a question from one of the commissioners.
Well, good day and thank you.
Thank you.
We have our next, I serve on the board for the Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association. Our next meeting is early September, and our last meeting 10 days, 2 weeks ago, the lack of workers going into the maritime industry is really almost alarming. So your timing here is great. I'd like to invite you I'm trying to get that next meeting to Curry County so I don't have to travel. Haven't succeeded yet, but would love to have you, invite you to offer a presentation on not just the workforce, but through the Extension Office. I think that would be, again, very timely.
Excellent. That'd be great. I have Miles cards here. Because on this invitation you'll find my information from my other hat, so I felt like that was a better presentation. Would it disrupt to hand these out now, or how shall I do that?
Please do.
Okay.
Yes, Counsel?
Thank you. I had a question for the speaker. You mentioned the training was free and available online. Did you say what the web address was for that, for the record? You might have to talk into the microphone. I'd be happy to do that.
You'll find these trainings And Miles' website, it's tourism.oregonstate.edu, and look under the headings of trainings. Plus, he has a lot of different information on
What was
there
that
that would be
again?
useful. Tourism.oregonstate.edu.
So the Oregon State is the OSU, not the state of Oregon?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How long has that Port Orford Marine Reserve been in existence?
So we started the restrictions in 2012, and you may be aware that our Marine Reserve was one of the first piloted reserves.
Right.
And it's a state,
It's okay.
state mandate that each reserve have a community team that keeps the stakeholders involved, from the fishermen to the local business to everybody concerned. Okay,
Shouldn't be talking into the mic.
Sorry.
Okay.
And, so that's the role that Red Fish Rocks community team has, we're the community liaison for the state to the community about the reserve.
Thank you. David Barnes.
Good morning, David Barnes. Two things. One, I noticed the dredging going on at the mouth of the port. Glad to see that happening and getting that out of the way. I noticed the rig that they have out there, and I'm wondering if that can be moved upriver to where we talked about the shoals. That, you know, that rig they have there with the long extension on it that dumps out could dump that rock right into the Tidewater yard over there. Just wanted to bring that up.
I have an answer to that, actually. I've been in contact with Congress, there's DeFazio's office, PK, and they have put me in touch with the Corps' boss, basically, Department of Transportation, which DeFazio also heads up, and they are looking for a solution as we speak right now. I'm expecting a call from them anytime. Campbell is supposed to be here today meeting with the Corps and with Andy here at the port, and he's going to, because I'm at this meeting, I couldn't be there. He's going to come over and give me a report later in the day, but they are working on a solution to the river and what's happening up here right now.
Great. Yeah, I happen to notice, I keep my boat over at the landing, the old Riverview, Silver Hook, whatever it was called, and I noticed at low tide, the tour boats have to come really close over there to the docks.
Sunday there was a guy hung up on that bar.
Yeah, in order to get through there, they got to
Jaws.
get close, and they got to be going to do it, and I'm watching my boat just bounce around over there, so... You know, second thing I wanted to ask about was, I noticed on today's agenda there's a lot more new hiring going on and more people being brought on. And the talk that you were having about creating a master plan or a strategic plan for the county kind of evaporated a while ago. And, you know, you're bringing on all these people. I'm wondering what your plan is for them, how this all ties together. You know, are we in the process? Are you in the process of starting to work on a master plan or a strategic plan, and where does that stand?
I'll let Ms. Schmelzer answer that because she's heading that up.
Okay.
Yes, actually, just this morning I finished the grant application from the Realtors Association to help with some of the funding. I wrote somebody else regarding the funding on it. So we're still working on the strategic plan. We're just trying to get... Thank you. We're still working on the strategic plan. We're just trying to get the funding. Realtors Association has agreed to help with a grant, and so I finished that grant application this morning and hit send. Wrote the state regarding possible funding of some more money for that. In regard to the hire orders, what you see on the agenda, what happens is we actually have an office pool, and the hire orders on the agenda are for the office pool. So what will happen is sometimes an employee will leave or somebody will go on vacation and we have nobody to come in and help. So what we do is we advertise for a pool, meaning a group of employees that can come in on short notice and substitute or sit at the desk and work. So we create this pool. When we run out of the pool, we advertise and we hire a new pool. A lot of times, this original pool, for example, had 4 people. One of them actually got a job, so now we're down to 3 in the pool. Sometimes these people get hired on to fill vacancies, but it's really, if, for example, if Mr. Jesuit would go on vacation, we would call someone out of this pool to come in and work in his place until he can come back. So the hire order looks like we're hiring 3 new people. It's really putting 3 people in the pool, so if we need somebody to come in on short notice or to fill in, we have somebody available.
Okay. I didn't mean so much those, as there's other positions that we're adding on, an economic development assistant, and I understand the need for the finance director when the TLT comes into effect. You need somebody to administer that. But I'm just, over the last few months, I'm just watching the roles of employees grow and grow and grow, and it seems to me that the only growth happening around here may be the growth in government. And I just wanted to express that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you get some new overhead photos of the sediment issue, and then later on I'll be talking about House Bill 2377, the study funding we got from the state, which is almost $500,000 for this issue.
No, that's just for you.
Next up, Ms. Rose.
Nancy Sue Rose from Nesika Beach. I am reading a letter from Karen Helgeson. Hello, Commissioners. First off, I am sorry to be absent to deliver this message in person, but I am headed out of town, and so my friend and co-production member of Curry County Voices, Nancy Sue Rose, has agreed to do this for me. I am Karen Helgeson, a Curry County Voices member who has filmed and edited quite a few programs for the website, currycountyvoices.com, and for Educational Channel 182. I was very sorry to hear that you have discontinued our collaboration on that channel and hope you will reconsider. Many thanks to Commissioner Pash and his wife for recently supporting the women bicyclists who are cycling the coast to raise awareness for human trafficking. You perhaps already know that the Seroptimists of Gold Beach and Brookings have been working together for more than 7 years to raise awareness and prevent this insidious crime. We have had a speaker in the Gold Beach High School, donated curriculum to all of the junior and senior high schools in Curry County, provided training to our law enforcement community from Oregon State Department of Justice Human Trafficking Division, and this spring provided an avenue of training to the staff of all the hotels and motels of Curry County. This week, we created our first public service announcement for an upcoming event each of you may have interest in attending. The Seroptimists are hosting the first ever Brookings Walk for Freedom. It will be one of hundreds of walks around the world, all taking place on Saturday, October 19th, to combat human trafficking. The organization we support is called A21, meaning Abolish Slavery in the 21st Century. Last year, it showed up in over 475 locations in 50 countries, reaching 70 million people through social media. I walked in Portland, the closest walk I could find, and decided to see if we can put Curry County on the map with these other cities, all cities who care about the welfare of men, women, and children who are exploited every day in this country and around the world. Each step makes a difference. One step at a time and $1 at a time, we fundraise and walk to see a world without slavery. We invite you to walk with us. There is no cost to register. Registration begins after July 30th. Please contact us at brookingswalkforfreedom@gmail.com to learn more. We have applied for the permit, have event insurance, and hope to have hundreds with us walking that day. Be looking for our Walk for Freedom PSA on TV this coming weekend. Free field to search A21 Walk for Freedom's website to preview the 2018 recap video. Please put October 19th on your calendars. Thank you. Karen Helgeson, CCV and Gold Beach Brookings Chair of Human Trafficking Prevention Committee of Seroptimist International.
Thank you, Nancy.
Could I double check that? The email again, was that Brookings Walk for
Should have
Freedom?
one of these right here.
You have an actual copy of the letter.
I don't see that.
It might be in here.
I'll research it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ms. Rose.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we have the consent agenda. To approve the Board of Commissioners minutes, business meeting June 12th, 2019. Approve the Board of Commissioners meeting 4-H Extension Service District meeting June 19th, 2019. We pulled C for discussion. D, job description for a finance director. E, contract renewal Everbridge. F, building official to building inspector pay decrease. G, work week hours increase from 37.5 to 40 hours. H, hire orders for 3 on-call administrative assistants, Jamie Parks, Miranda Plegg, and Michelle Stump. And I, promotion, order maintenance and construction worker 2 to a 3.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second, Chair Pash.
Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, moving on to 5. Discussion items, purchase of Freightliner oil distributor, Mr. Christensen. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioners. Roadmaster Christensen. I'm here to receive board approval to move forward to purchase a new oil distributor truck and chassis with for $188,000. The current equipment, the chassis is 30 years old, and the actual distributor portion is 40 years old. This equipment has had plenty of breakdowns. It leaks oil all over the place, and it causes us a lot of problems with our chip seal program, with putting too much oil down at times, putting not enough oil down at times, and it affects production and also our quality of work. So I'd like to ask for board approval for me to get signature authority to move forward with this purchase.
Question.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 183,000? Is that what?
188,000.
Whoops. Okay, sorry.
Is that's for the truck, the tank, everything, correct?
That's for everything.
The bars, spray bars, everything?
Everything. And it's a modern distributor. The old distributor, every day we get done with our work, we have to wash out with 5 to 8 gallons of diesel that we have to dispose of. This new equipment, very environmentally friendly. It sucks everything back into the tank. There is no leakage. There's no byproduct. And our old equipment, the computer system in it, it doesn't hold calibration. The pumps are wore out, and it really affects the quality of work. I mean, we perform really great work, but it's a real struggle.
You say it's 30 years old, the old truck?
Yeah, the chassis itself is 30 years old, and the distributor portion on the chassis, the big 3,000-gallon tank with all the pumps and bars, is 40 years old.
Got our money's worth out of that. Commissioner Gold?
I just have a couple of questions. Is this within your budget?
Yes.
Okay, that's my big question. I guess the other one is, have you actually analyzed how much you're losing, money-wise, material-wise, because of your flawed equipment?
No. It's, I talked with engineering to try to provide that for me, but with workload, we just weren't able to come up with that number.
But at the end of the day, basically, you're taking 5 to 8 gallons of diesel fuel, running it through this. That's man hours. That's
right.
Intensive
And
kind of things. With this new truck, you won't have to have those problems either.
Right, and we have to dispose of that. And historically, you know, these old rigs, they just pulled out to a big turnout, would blow it out on the ground somewhere, and you just can't do business like that anymore.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I move that we give Mr. Christensen signing order for this new piece of equipment.
Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next, we have purchase of 5 Dodge Ram pickup trucks. Mr. Christensen.
The roadmaster is seeking the board to authorize myself to purchase 5 new Dodge Ram
4x4 pickup trucks for the road department. This is to replace 4 aging pickup trucks that have over 100,000 miles on them, and somewhere like 135,000 miles, and also to replace the Roadmaster's pickup truck, which is 3 years old. And the thought is that the road department is going to start selling their used vehicles every 3 years and resell them on the market and try to break even, with the thought that we can buy our vehicles at a governmental price and resell them at a public on the open market price. My Roadmaster pickup truck appraises out to $27,000 currently, and these new trucks I'm trying to buy today are $24,000. And so we're going to a 4x4 truck with a quad cab because they have a high resale value and they're really easy to flip. And so these 5 trucks that we're looking to purchase today, in 3 years, we'll be looking to place those back on the market and replacing them with 5 new trucks to keep our costs down for in the future.
I have a feeling I know Commissioner Gould's question. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, I know I've seen some of the prices on trucks recently. So what is the retail value on these trucks versus the government cost? Or do you know? I can tell you what I saw when I was like,
Retail on these, I will tell you, I know.
$34,000.
34 and 37,000.
Yeah, they're
okay,
34,000.
the ones I've seen are like 50,000 for a
Yeah.
truck, and it's like,
Yeah, well, these particular models here, they're not the diesel, they're not the big motor.
oh, they're not
Yeah.
real
they're-
fancy. Okay.
Yeah, they're more baseline.
No leather seats or anything like that?
No. And,
Oh.
but
No
they are
Lar-
still
no
pretty
lariat
fancy if you
packages.
think about it. They have the dash camera with the backup camera, and they're pretty amazing trucks.
Okay, so they're basically base
They're
type
base
trucks.
level,
Okay.
yes, and they're about $10,000 less than for the consumer to buy them.
All I have to ask is, did I ask the question you thought I was going to ask?
Is this
It
in
isn't.
your budget?
Absolutely.
Well, that's a good question, too. I knew it was in your budget, so I didn't ask that.
All right, so do I have a motion?
Question?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you. So you're working closely with Roadmaster on this?
Yes.
And so this is something that you're very experienced in, which I appreciate. And the 24,000 looks like, boy, it's hard to find a new rig, no matter how plain it is. The concern I have is this. We're nudging up against $2 million for new equipment for the road department in the last, I think, 10 months or so. And I'm not necessarily in opposition to that or complaining. But I think the public, when they see new rigs, it's really hard to communicate to them. When a county is, with the financial issues that we have and we're buying new rigs, I understand the rationale behind it. And again, I appreciate the effort you have made, both of you. But just be advised that we are buying a lot of road department equipment, all of which I have supported. But I think you're up against just the public perception, if I understand correctly, or if my perception is correct, that is, people are shaking their heads. And so just be prepared, and I'm going to try and do the best I can to also, when I get asked, to explain logically why this is good business for our little county. So, again, not a complaint, Mr. Roadmaster, but I'd like to have a little moratorium on equipment for a while, just
I
so
have
we
an
kind of
open
catch
door
up.
policy, and anybody from the public, from the commissioners, ask me personally or email me or call me at any time.
And one other thing that I think it's important that the public, maybe we reiterate, is some of the equipment that is being purchased is to replace equipment. Like you just said, this truck is 30 years old. The sprayers and everything that are on the back of this truck is 40 years old. Environmentally, it'll help the county. It'll save man hours. So I think, some of the equipment that we've suffered through the last several years with is at life's end, and it's finally to the point that we need to replace some of this stuff. So I appreciate Commissioner Boyce's comments and his
Right,
attention to this.
And I do as well. In the road department, they saved every dime and penny that they could on this equipment, and they've exceeded the life of this equipment. And that's how the road fund was established, by smart and really conservative spending. And so we're at the time where this equipment is not only getting old, but it's causing safety issues. I have accidents that are happening with older equipment that we need not to have, and because someone could get hurt. Also, too, is it's part of the road department vision in the future to contract out chip sealing, and we need to have good performing equipment in order to perform that work. The state has reached out to me if we could chip seal Carpenterville Road in a couple of years, and I want to try to do that. And the U.S. Forest has done the same. And so we're trying to get our equipment up to a level in our staffing to be able to perform that work. In the long run, it's going to save us money is what we're looking at.
Yes, sir.
Thank you again. You might want to express, and I really do believe you're right, on the 3-year rotation, why that makes sense for the county. Maybe today you don't have to do it. I'm just recommending you consider that. The other thing is, it's just not at the county, our county. It's other counties have this issue. And then, yes, seeing new vehicles at any level of government, be it state, federal, whatever, people, that's a tangible thing that they can point a finger at and go, wow, here's what I drive, and here's what they're driving, and they take it home, and the taxpayers fund it. And so I'm not saying I agree with that, disagree with that, but I understand why they might have a comment or even a reactive position on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Gold?
I'm just going to make a quick comment, especially about your aging equipment. When it comes to the point where it costs more to repair it and it takes more man-hours to take care of things, I think it can be totally justified logically. So I personally do not have a problem with that and would stand up and cry it from the highest tower if I had to.
Commissioner Boyce?
I'm sorry, one more thing, and this isn't working with other counties. They do simple math here. They take the amount of roads that they have in any given county. We have 225, whatever, give or take. And then here's our budget for the year. This is how much it cost us per year, per mile to maintain the roads. And if you get around 60, 70,000 per mile or whatever the figure is, that's from a budget perspective and our responsibility. I'm going to be paying more attention to that. And yeah, that's all. Thank you. And I'll make a motion to approve the purchase unless there's something else.
Well, there's one other thing I wanted to say, and that is Mr. Christensen and I have worked closely on this as well, like he just spoke about doing future chip sealing. And by having new equipment, people like the state have already reached out to him. So these are going to be benefits to the county that we've already got the arrows in our quiver, so that when people call us and say, Brookings says we need, gee, can you chip seal the highway for us? Our equipment's down right now. We can say, yes, we can, and put those machines to work and make some revenue, bring some revenue and keep people working in the county rather than moving people out. So that's a lot of the thinking that went into a lot of this. So.
Okay. And the work you did, your crew did from Agnes to Foster Bar is really good. And that we get RAF traffic, as you know, from all over the world. That improvement, that long-term preventative maintenance, I think, says a lot for the county, and the welcome mat to the people that pull out from the 3-day flow trip in the wild section. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So can I get a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chair. Purchase of 5 Dodge vehicles.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Yes.
Chair Pash?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to C, ordinance, second reading, business license. Ms. Schmelzer.
Yes, earlier this year, the board had requested we bring forward a draft business license. So we took the one that had been worked on by a previous board, brought it back to you with some minor amendments. The board approved the draft. We had the first reading on it. This is the second reading. If the board approves this second reading, the ordinance would go into effect in 90 days.
One quick comment, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Boyce?
In working with Economic Development Coordinator Madison, she is working in, I think, really well on target to explain to the people that will be accepting this business license and complying that there's going to be some things eventually that we could list that would be a benefit to them, that the county would be providing. And that would help their businesses. So I just want to make that comment, and I'm encouraging her to pursue that, and I think it's good business.
Okay. Any further comment? A motion, please?
I move that we approve the business license on the second reading.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner
This is
Boyce?
$100? I didn't see that in here.
Yes.
Is that standard for all?
No, there are
Did I miss that?
there are different changes.
Okay, I'll research that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Yes.
Chair Pash?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
D, appoint members to Tourism Promotions Committee. Ms. Schmelzer.
Yes, with the passing of the TLT ordinance, we do have to appoint a tourism promotions committee. So we did advertise for that. The way it is written, we need 2 from the south, 2 from the central part of the county, 2 from the north, and then 1 at large. And we have not received applications for the ones from the north. We have had people interested, but we did not receive the applications. So as for the northern positions, we will have to actually, for the northern positions, we'll actually have to advertise for those again. But without the northern ones, we still have enough for a quorum, so we'd like you to proceed and appoint the ones,
Okay.
the south and the central and the at-large, so we can begin to meet and begin to discuss what we're going to do with the promotions committee and the TLT dollars.
I happen to know someone in the room that might have an interest in that. I don't know. All right, so how do we want to do the vote? Do we just want to fill out the paper that you gave us and see maybe the majority wins? Or how do we want to just do it? Do we want to go down on a name by name, yay or nay?
It's up to the board. We can either do it vocally, or you can just check it off and submit it to JJ and he can read
Why
it.
don't we do this, unless there's objection from anyone else on the board? The South County only has 2 already. We need both. Is there any objection to those 2 names?
None here, Mr. Chair.
None.
Okay, so those 2 names will convey. Barbara, sorry, Barbara, if I slaughter it.
Caramello.
Caramello, okay, I was going to say Ciaramella.
Should be a very good representative.
All right, and Aaron Johnson, so they are the
For 2.
South County 2. Now, North County has none. If anyone from North County is out there listening, we need some voice from North County to be on this committee, Tourism Promotion Committee for Curry County. So in Central County, we have 6 names: Terry Dominic, Nick McNair, Julie Brown, David Schnazik, David Honey, and Larry Brennan.
David Haney.
Haney,
Mhm.
sorry.
It's okay.
So we need 2 from Central County and 1 at large from Central, because we have no others to put in as an at large. So Commissioner Boyce.
Yeah, let's just vote on our, secretly here on our
Okay.
ballots if we can, Mr.
Is that the
Chair.
thing you left in my box this morning?
Yes.
Here's an extra one.
Do you have an extra?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I feel
make sure it's
so
up-
unprepared.
Just make sure it's updated, because Ron Crook had withdrawn his name.
Yeah, it is.
So if you,
it's,
for the 2 we want, you need to put next to the name that you choose what year you would like theirs to end, 2021 or 22. And the at-large, just maybe use an AL for your at-large choice. Okay.
gaining.
Here, why don't we just give them down to council, let him look at them.
So should I read the results?
Yes, please.
So I've got Terry Dominic, and 2 members indicated a 21 end date for that term. And then I have Nick McNair, 2 votes for Nick McNair with 2022 end date for that term. And then I have Julie Brown, 2 votes for at-large, 3 votes for Julie Brown, 2 specifying at-large with a 2020 end date. And then I have 1 vote for Dave Snazik. So it appears to be Dominic, 2021, McNair, 2022, as a Central County, with Julie Brown as an at-large, 2020.
Okay, Commissioner Boyce?
Council Huddle, how many did you have for Dominic?
Had 3 votes for Dominic, 2 saying 2021 end date.
Thank you.
All right, so those votes will carry then. So we will have, to reiterate, Barbara Caramella, Aaron Johnson from South County. And we need to assign them a year as well. Does anyone have a choice for Barbara and or Aaron, 20 or 21?
I'd say 21 for Barbara.
21 for Barbara,
Yeah.
20. Okay, so Barbara Caramella will be, her position will be until
Select.
12/31/21. Aaron Johnson will be 12/31/20. Terry Dominic will be Central County, 12/31/21. Nick McNair will be 12/31/22. Julie Brown will be at large, 12/31/20. And we are still hoping for 2 from North County to help have a voice on this committee for tourism and promotion. Do I have a motion, please?
So move, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next, we have change orders on E, 1 and 2 for Brookings Head Start Program. Council Huddle.
Thank you. So in your materials are the documents supporting the change order. What the materials explain is that we had a certain budget for construction, and this change order, there's 2 change orders actually. One is to eliminate some dry rot that was discovered after tear down of some walls and framing, and that's in the tune of close to $1,800 to $2,000. And then the other change order is to install some what are called heliacal piers, which are, I think they'd be described as perhaps giant screws that go down into the soil. It's in I think the southwest corner of the structure. They think it was built on fill, and so they need to take these screws and drill them down into the ground till they hit firm, I'll call it bedrock, even though I don't know if it's exactly bedrock, but regardless, it's supposed to tie the slab into more stable soil to prevent further slippage and damage. The amount of the change order exceeds our construction budget. However, we have an agreement in place with a group called ORCA, the Oregon Coast Alliance and Community Alliance, and what they do is they have obtained funding, and by separate confidential communication, I submitted to you a document that they have explained where they will obtain an additional $60,000 of funding, which would cover this change order and per their agreement with us, because ultimately ORCA will own this building once we're done with the construction. So with those pieces, and then at your places today, I submitted you some documents. Looks like this. It's called McSwain Woods Architecture Report, and if you look on the couple of pages in the back. It shows the saw cutting pictures that were done to install the plumbing piping, which is where they discovered the, I'll call it insufficient subflooring and foundation. And that's the area, the southwest corner, where they're going to be putting in the heliacal piers. And then also you can see some photographs of the general progress. You can see a significant amount of new framing where they're shaping in the buildings and putting in roof trusses and whatnot. So really it's both an update as well as a supporting documents for the change order. And unless there's any questions, I'm seeking approval.
Commissioner Boyce.
Sure, I'll support, of course. If you get, and it's probably not going to be necessary from here on, but if you get any more of those that it's a construction issue, I'd like to go down and take a look and just have a little closer review of what they might be asking for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
I have a motion.
so moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a
I'll
second.
second that.
Further discussion. Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next is 5F, designation of newspaper of record, Curry County, fiscal year 2019 through 2021. Council Huddle.
Thank you. I understand my name's on this item, but I think the director did all the hard work. I don't know, Julie, do you want to kind of summarize what's happening here?
Sure. At the last meeting, the board discussed, should we go with all three newspapers as a newspaper of as our newspaper of record? There was some question as to what the cost would be. We didn't have definitive costs in front of us. Since that time, I did speak with Mr. Hall, and he did say that he would, his paper, the reporter would charge the same as the pilot, and then the Port Orford News would also charge the same as the pilot. So basically, if you went with all three papers, they would all be charging the same price. If I understand that correctly, is that correct, Matt? Okay. So, if we do want to go with all three newspapers as our newspaper of record, they will all be charging us the same fee.
Commissioner Gold.
How much is the pilot going to be charging?
Well, the
It's in the
council
ordinance.
has that in front of him, but they submitted documentation showing what they would be charging. I don't have that in front of me.
$6
but
per
council might-
column.
I think it was $6. Yeah.
Which is what
Well,
it
that was with the old regime. I'm just wondering whether the new owners are going to go with that?
And I don't know, that's the paperwork they had submitted to be the agent of record for the coming year. So I don't know how that works with newspapers.
Whether they're going to stick to that deal or?
That is what they submitted, and
Well, we do the designation, and if we can undesignate them would be the ultimate recourse. We only, technically, if I could, we only legally have to select one newspaper of record. So we don't really need three. What we're doing for three, because of the geographic structure of our county and the population areas. So we're just trying to cover everyone. But legally, we only need to select one.
And I agree with Commissioner Boyce that, and Matt actually, when he spoke, I would like to see equal representation. The North County needs to know as well as the South County. So what we can do is, I would imagine on the contracts of a purchase, the pilot would be bound by the agreements that they have in place. And if they back off of those agreements, then we can always deselect them, as Council Huddle has just announced. So it would be my recommendation and motion that we carry all three papers as the papers of record for this county.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? We usually don't accept public comment on this, yeah. Okay. Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, G, intergovernmental agency with CCH to provide jail medical services. Council Huddle.
Thank you. So the document in your electronic agenda is included Exhibit A, which was a scope of services Ken Duquet is here from CCH, but between the time we submitted it, and Ken Duquet, by the way, was not physically in the county or physically on the job when we submitted this document, so he didn't have a chance to review it until this week. And after Ken came back, he proposed some changes to Exhibit A. They were clarifying changes, in my opinion, not really substantive changes. Essentially, in the Exhibit A that is in your electronic materials, it included a lot of references to statutes that are the sheriff's duty and the county's duty when running a jail. But Ken, and we've talked with the Sheriff John Ward has given his okay. At your places is what I'm getting to, is a revised Exhibit A, which is the scope of services. The Sheriff and the Jail Command staff has looked at that and given it a thumbs up. I also believe it clarifies that their role is mainly medical. They're the physician and nurse people. They're not the jail people, which is a real shorthand way of describing the difference between this Exhibit A and the Exhibit A that was in your electronic materials. So just requesting a revision. Ken can be here to speak to it. Commissioner Boyce, you had a question for me prior to the meeting. I said perhaps you could ask Ken that question. I will say on page, I believe it's 7 of the document, the nuts and bolts of this document are that we had 2 irregular employees who were paying a monthly salary to act as our jail physician and nurse, and one of them is retiring, so we have to replace one. And it was, talked about between CCH and the Jail Command if there was another way to do it, and CCH said since they have doctors and nurses, they could be the doctors and nurses for the jail. Again, speaking very loosely, on page 7 of your agenda item in the electronic packet, section 7, it basically describes we would pay them $4,000 a month in exchange for jail medical services. Payments commence on August 1st, which is really the nuts and bolts, which is also one of the effective days of the employee who won't be here anymore. Ken, the question I have, unless Commissioner...
No, thank you. I absolutely missed that, and I was trying to catch you at something, and it failed.
Well, no, you weren't trying to catch me. You were asking a question. And,
thank you.
And Ken, though, the question Commissioner Boyce asked me is whether we have 1 patient who needs care or 20 patients who need care. It's $4,000 a month flat fee. Yes, I think that's what... And I said, yes, that's my understanding. And essentially with these kind of agreements on a flat fee, you have busy months and slow months, and it all kind of comes out in the wash at the end.
It's like an insurance policy.
Operation will look a little bit differently. We're going to be doing 2 sick calls every week, where a nurse practitioner will be going to the jail Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, however that schedule works out, and they'll be seeing anyone who has any medical needs at that time. We'll also have an RN going over there 1 time each week. We have a medical doctor and 2 family nurse practitioners, so we have plenty of staff to do that. Our expansion, recent expansion, will work really well with the jail. It seemed that they had staff leave at the same time we were expanding, so it's beneficial for both entities.
Commissioner Gold?
I know this has been a real problem for the Sheriff's Department, being able to predict what the medical costs will be. And so I guess my big question is, will they be saving money in the long run or
Yes, Commissioner.
spending more?
So when I met with the Sheriff's Department and we went over this, they had budgeted about $6,000 a month. We're doing it for $4,000 a month. So on the surface, there's a $2,000 a month savings. Because we're going to have nurse practitioners going and providing these services as opposed to an RN, they're able to prescribe. If a prescription is needed, Corner Drug will do the delivery on the prescription. We're going to take out the pharmacy at the jail because it reduces liability for both the jail and us. And those deliveries are pretty frequent. We plan to reduce urgent care visits because they can simply bring them over to one of our clinics. There will be a separate contract coming out with the jail where our charge to the jail inmates will be Medicaid cost only, which is the same rate we would get for any OHP client that we see as well. This will greatly, again, reduce the amount of money that the jail staff is currently spending on medical care. However, there will be times when inmates may need to go to the ER or they may need to go to a dentist. Our medical professionals might recognize that there's a tooth issue or a gum issue, and we'll get them on an antibiotic and stabilize them. but we don't do dental procedures, obviously. So I anticipate to see some reduction in cost. Already $24,000 a year with the $2,000 a month reduction.
Do you see any other further underlying costs that could pop up and bite us?
I think we need to get about 90 days in and kind of look at that. We've always worked well together. I don't anticipate that we're going to have any problems. And our goal is healthier inmates.
Absolutely.
That is our goal. And get them connected to those services so that actually when they get out of jail, they have a resource for primary care or mental health or some of the other services that we provide.
Commissioner Gold?
I guess one of my main concerns is the hospital issue, them having to go to ER or something like that. And I guess we can't predict that. But in that $6,000 a month that the Sheriff's Department had budgeted, I'm sure this was included, but are they going over budget right now because of all the unpredicted medical issues or?
Well, one can never guess as to what may occur.
Yeah,
Again, our goal is, if somebody needs to go to the ER, they need to go to the ER because we are a patient-centered primary care home certified by the state of Oregon. There are 5 tiers, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. We've been tier 4 for the last couple of years. And so we do those primary care services. I don't think we'll see people going to urgent care because they'll be coming to our clinic offices. We've been open in Brookings, and then we are reopening our Gold Beach office September 1 and reopening our Port Orford office October 1.
So are you
Way to go.
opening an urgent care there in Brookings also?
Primary care, not urgent care.
urgent care?
Primary
Okay.
care.
Just saying, just asking.
We do offer same-day appointments to all of our clients. Same thing with the jail. If one of our nurse practitioners or our MD went in to see the inmates and somebody was sick, we would get them over to our clinic. And then the jail is only on the hook for the Medicaid rate as opposed to a much larger cost that you might see at urgent care or an ER.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where was I going? Oh, here we go. Jail health services for inmates and detainees. I want to read just one paragraph on the general provisions. It's short, but it's an obligation, or at least it gives the interpretation, I think, of an obligation. Further assurance, the parties agree to prepare, execute, acknowledge, and deliver all documents, writings, and records, and to take all steps and actions as may be necessary to support public health services and programs. Nationwide, as you know, there's a movement towards the socialized medicine aspect. What I want the county taxpayers to know that throughout Oregon, and I know you're aware of this, all counties are rejecting the notion of full liability and responsibility for inmate health care and dental, as you mentioned, services. I don't know what will happen in the next year through those efforts, but it's got a lot of the, especially the rural counties and the taxpayers going, whoa. And as we've discussed previously, it is growing, that responsibility, and that is almost a demand, and it is state law. So again, I just want the citizens to know that we're going to be resisting a little bit to at least get a shared responsibility with the states, the cities, the federal government. Thank you for the discount. It sounds like that through Curry Community Health, you're willing to make this work and pulling the whole thing together. You're working in relationship with the sheriff's office. I just have long-term concerns, as I know all of you do. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just wanted to give a quick response on that. The preventative care is really the target here. The more we see the inmates on a regular basis, the less likely they are to end up in the ER. And that's really the whole drive here. Instead of waiting until somebody gets sick, let's treat them ahead of time and try to curb that potential.
Right.
That was going to be my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's also the prescription drug aspect is a whole nother part of that equation that's horribly expensive. So,
I understand.
thank you.
I get a motion, please.
I move that we approve the IGA with CCH will provide jail and medical services to the tune of $4,000 a month.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pesh.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
I happen to notice JJ's fingers over there smoking a little bit, so we're going to take a 10-minute recess. We will reconvene at 10:10.
Thank you, Mr. Duque, for
Thanks
being
for
here
coming over.
today.
Say what?
We're back in. It's 10:12 in the morning on July 10th. And Julie, Commissioner Gold has asked that we have a little clarification on something, and I agree with her on the consent agenda for G. The increase from 37.5 to 40 hours, it could be deemed that that's everyone, and it's only one person, correct?
It is just one person. If you look at the agenda routing slip that went with it and the order, it is just for Shelley Crichton in the Building Services
Yeah,
Department.
and I think we were well aware of that, but I don't know that everybody else was. When you just look at the agenda, it kind of looks like it's all encompassing, so.
Yeah, no, it is definitely just for that employee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we
why I
just-
wanted that clarification to be made.
We just wanted
That's
to
a good
make the
point.
public aware of it, so thank you. All right, moving on to 5H, which is what we pulled from the consent agenda. C, job description for economic development assistant, and that's open for discussion.
I'll begin by just giving a little background on this. So staff was directed to come up with a job description for an economic development assistant that would be responsible for administering the TLT ordinance and the business license if it passed. Also looked at the duties on that and thought they could do some miscellaneous economic activities such as the social media, and then serve as backup to administrative assistant Jesuit, so he can take a vacation or a day off now and then. So we put that job description together and we sent that off to LGPI, and it came back the way that you have in front of you. Since that time, the treasurer has talked to us and said that she would like to see that position also serve as a treasurer in training almost. That is not included in the job description that's before you. We do have a separate deputy treasurer job description for that. One of my concerns with rolling it into the same job description was
As a treasurer?
as a treasurer is, if this position is the deputy treasurer and they're training as the treasurer leaves and this person becomes the treasurer, then we're stuck with no one to administer these ordinances, and we're basically, unless we change more job descriptions around. But it's really up to the board how they want to approach this. The one you have in front of you is to administer the TLT ordinances, the business license, miscellaneous work, and then serve as backup to administrative assistant Jesuit.
So I was kind of looking at this, and it kind of looked like it was either your assistant or Summer's assistant. Who is this person going to be responsible to?
Okay, so the person actually would be supervised by me, so that would be, they would report to me, but they would be doing miscellaneous responsibilities that would be economic development related as well. Economic development does fall under the umbrella of community development and currently in the board's office. So there are certain things that the economic development coordinator is doing right now that really would be better suited for more of an admin type person. For example, updating Facebook posts and things of that nature. That is a pretty basic function that's an assistant could be doing.
So who's doing that now?
Summer is doing that.
Okay, and I thought maybe JJ was looking at our website doing that.
No, Summer actually volunteered to look at the entire county website to try and make it look better for a marketing tool. She actually created a Curry County Board of Commissioners social media page. She keeps that up. She keeps up the Economic Development Initiative Facebook page, and she keeps up the Travel Curry Coast Facebook page, and they have another social media page. So she's doing all that in addition to the duties that she's doing.
And that's a lot of extra work.
And this is something that we, this position, I think firstly we need to understand that once the TLT comes in, how important this position will be. First of all, we need to protect the businesses and their private records. So this person would need to have an office that would be suitable to that. But it's an important position that someone is collecting TLT money that keeps that information private so that it's not brought out to the public on business profits, those kind of things, as well as the business license applications. These are things also that I don't believe are privy to public information. So this is a position that's going to be a trusted position as well. I'm not necessarily opposed to a deputy treasurer because I understand the treasurer has commitments to the public and their privacy. However, I agree with Ms. Schmelzer that if our treasurer should decide to step down and or retire, we kind of be left holding the bag for this position. Do I think that this is a full-time position? I absolutely do, especially with having someone to take a little bit of the load off of the administrative day-to-day things in the office and all of the social media stuff that we have to deal with these days as well. But I think the most important part of this position is finding someone that we can entrust with the knowledge of all the businesses and their profits and or losses in this county, and making sure that that is protected is imperative.
So just a little history. The office used to have the administrator, an equivalent to Mr. Jesuit, and then they also had an economic development assistant at one time. So at one time there were 2 staff in there, and this would be putting it back to the 2 staff, although there are different functions. This one is more fine-tuned and more very specific to economic development.
Commissioner Boyce?
Again, I appreciate that we're having discussion on this, and I'm learning as we go. I think you had mentioned sometime back, and I think I overlooked, that there might be a chance to train or partially mutually go with the treasurer. And so I don't think we'll be left in a tough position. We could, but even the treasurer, Crumley now is saying, hey, this might be an option to go. So I think that's ways to save money. I think it's efficient. The last 8 months, and I've said this before, and I'm not trying to offer undue flattery or anything, but it is a real joy to come to work now. And I see the major aspect of what we're accomplishing as production. And so we're looking to bring in another person in that combination. So that's going to be a pretty important decision. And I approach that certainly with optimism that we'll find a person that fits in well. I'll just conclude with this again, other than to say thanks for carrying on this discussion, Mr. Chair. But Economic Director or Coordinator Madison working to volunteer on this, keeping the public informed, I think is very important. Again, I'm just going to state that, in my view, that is a big job. So I don't know where that leaves us today as far as potentially combining these job descriptions. However, initially it sounds like a good idea to pursue to me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gold?
I have another question. I noticed the salary range is from $40,565 to $51,767, which is equivalently, because of benefits being about 50%, $60,800 roughly to $77,000. So I guess my big question is the money going to be coming from TLT funds, or where's the money going to be coming from?
Okay, so a couple things on that. Whenever we do a job description, we send it off to LGPI, and they tell us what the position should be paid. So just so the public understands, we're not setting those salary rates. That's a firm that is doing that for us. The thought was that the part of the TLT dollars and then the business license fee would go for this position.
Okay, so do you have any idea how much? Because I know we're crunched for money, let's face facts.
Yeah, we are crunched for money. The TLT tax talks about how a certain amount has to go for promotions and a certain amount can go for other offhand. I
think there's
it's up to-
5% administrative fee,
Yeah, so those fees would go towards this position.
the 5%.
Some of that 5%, yes.
And then, like I said, the business license, the entire business license fee would go towards this position.
Another thing to understand, though, I'd like to say that from my comments a moment ago is it's important, I think, first that this board looks to hire the person to handle the TLT and the business license aspect of this first. And then if we can work this into a deputy treasurer's and draw some, I know she has a budget, she's stated a number in her budget that she could, apply to this salary as well. And we were to allow that to happen down the road. But I think initially we should look to this person to be the person that's going to take care of the TLT, the business licenses, as I see the liquor things, the liquor license applications, and all of the advertising and social media stuff, as well as, some carryover things, perhaps administratively in our offices. And again, should we be able to work this into a trial period as a deputy for Ms. Crumley, then down the road we can look to do that, absolutely. But I think we need to make sure that this person would first be able to do their duties, because this is all new road for us. We don't have a TLT yet. We don't know what all those duties are going to consist of, how many hours a week per month it's going to take, and or the business licenses. And I'm sure initially getting that all geared up and getting up to speed on all that is going to be more than once it's set up, the day-to-day operation of that. So I think I don't want to see this board overextend someone before we even hire them on what their job duties should be. I think we should take it one step at a time. The administrative fees, I believe, will be there in the 5%. Part of the 5% of the TLT, we're estimating about $800,000 or $900,000 a year on that. So with those numbers and a percentage of the business license numbers, I think that'll pretty much pencil out closely. So I just don't want to overextend this person before we even discover their full job description.
So your biggest concern is to make sure that they are, number one, focused on the main reasons we're hiring?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And protecting the public, making sure the public is protected on their private business information.
Well said.
That, for me, is imperative.
Well said.
Any further comments? So do we want to bring this back as a consent item, or do we just want to approve it for now? We can just approve it.
So if the board approves the job description, then we can advertise the position. And if we get a qualified applicant, we can come back with a higher order after that.
I'll so move.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next, we have, if we could switch I and J, because we have a county employee sitting here, and I just noticed him back, so that he can get back to his work, if that's all right with everyone.
Certainly.
Can we have the discussion on HVAC, please? Which for the public is the air conditioning system in this building.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Hansen, Facilities Director. We have a failed unit in the HVAC system, heating, air conditioning, dehumidification for this floor of the annex, the top floor. And it has failed. Think of, we've got 2 units. It takes 2 units to supply the air for this large of an area. 1 unit has failed. Think of it as your car radiator times 8, except for they're 4.5 feet by 4.5 feet. There's a lot of little wells involved, and the one that was exposed to the elements most failed. It's not repairable, and when that happens, that entire unit shuts down. So we were able to combine all of the brain power of both of them into one compressor. so that we were able to limp through till now. We had another failure earlier this week where the additional pressure blew a valve and we lost all of our refrigerant again. So the only method of this is to replace both of them. Mitsubishi will not supply just one when there are two required. The warranty has expired. They got that almost down to within 10 months. However, two others have failed, identical units that we have here. One up in Port Orford at their school. They're having the same issue. And we brought this up in another one in Brookings. I believe it's Azalea School. I'm not positive which one. Mitsubishi has realized that they were using wrong materials for the Pacific coastal climate that we have. So they have changed their coating processes at the manufacturer and their soldering equipment to compensate for our harsh climate here. This is brand new. Originally, if you look into the contract, I was able to negotiate them down from $55,000 to $34,000, taking into consideration that it was the manufacturer's failure. Again, the warranty has expired. They agreed on $34,000 for total replacement. That's parts and labor. The people that installed this originally will be the same ones doing the work here because they're extremely familiar with it. They're also the sole provider for Mitsubishi City multi-units in this county and Del Norte. So I'm asking you to approve this contract, and as soon as I can get a check for the down payment you see in front of you, I can get this equipment shipped. And it's large enough, I'll have to coordinate with a crane operator to lower it down into position. That's going to be an additional charge of about $400. It'll only take them maybe an hour to place the equipment. And during this process, the Harborview techs and myself, we've come up with a plan that they will utilize on these other units to ensure that the weather does not get into what's called the motherboard, the circuitry. They were from factory, they just come with a foam lined enclosure, and the salt ate the foam, so all of the motherboard was essentially exposed. I opened it up, I didn't bring the photographs. You can see the spiders have moved in, and the corrosion, the salt is eating away at the motherboard. So we have a way that we can prevent that from happening. That would be the next issue after the solders failed. We'd lose the motherboard. So it's time to scrap the present equipment. So,
Well, Mitsubishi having admitted, though, that they've got faulty engineering, have they possibly offered, extending the warranty somewhat or giving us a partial warranty on it, or?
Just a $20,000 discount.
yeah, $20,000 discount and an additional 10 years on their equipment this next shipment.
Not another 11 months, huh?
Yeah. But we have a way that we can, we'll probably get 20 years out of this new equipment.
Commissioner Gold?
It almost sounds like planned obsolescence to me.
Well,
But-
we haven't seen that before, have we?
But my question is, if Harborview comes in and you change the configuration of the HVAC system, is there going to be a problem with the warranty?
No, there will be no changes to the configuration. This will be all original equipment installed as is in the building.
Okay.
No changes will happen inside the building. It will just be a plug and play with two new units outside.
But Harborview was going to put some sort of a protection there.
All that protection is on the outdoor units to prevent from the corrosion in the environment.
Okay, but is that going to cause a problem with the warranty?
No,
Okay.
it will not.
Okay, I just want to make sure of that because sometimes when you start playing with stuff, they...
Yes, no, they're good with that.
So what's our timeline? If we approve this today, when do you think we would have this equipment installed? Because
By
it's
the
the
end of
middle of
this
summer.
month.
By the end of the month?
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
I
So
will... Go ahead.
So move, Mr. Chair, to approve this, excuse me, I'll have a question in a minute, but yeah, to approve this repair.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the replacement of the HVAC system.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Boyce?
Just good job on your tough negotiating there for,
I have to thank the
Getting that break.
text from Harborview. He also has to go back to school. This is part of the deal Harborview is going to pay for, and to go back to get the education that Mitsubishi requires to make these adjustments factory certified.
good
That's
job.
how we got around the warranty.
Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Sadly, aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
By the way, that's a good company. I've used them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 5I, Commissioner's Car. I don't know who wants to comment on this, but we have it open.
I added that to the agenda. So we now have a new pool of cars, and one of the questions was, should there be a specific car just for commissioners? At an earlier meeting, I was directed to see if perhaps some counties give commissioners a different mileage rate instead of doing the county mileage rate or the federal mileage rate if they get a specific mileage rate. I was not able to find that. So then the other alternative that I could think of is if there was a special car just for commissioners. The thought was one of the Tauruses, which we were going to turn in for auction, would be left available just for commissioners if the board was so inclined to do that, rather than have a new car designated to the commissioners. And the reasoning on that is due to the amount of mileage that is put on these vehicles, should we be using an older vehicle and just keep running it into the ground, I guess?
My only issue with that is, and first of all, what I just gave the other two commissioners here is a current list of our vehicles that we have, and as you can see on this list, the ones that are scheduled to go to auction and or one is to go to the Sheriff's Department because they just got rid of, I think the old Crown Victoria that they had finally blew up. My only issue with this is the maintenance, and one of the reasons for reducing the motor pool and going with new vehicles on a 3-year, 2.5, 3-year rollover was to decrease the maintenance on the vehicles. Everything would be under warranty so that the county wouldn't have a liability. I would be open to do this only as long as the vehicle that we choose continues to not be a maintenance issue, where if we're getting into transmissions and engines and suspension systems, then it's time to go bye-bye. If it becomes a maintenance nightmare, then it's got to go. But it's, we already own it. If this board decides to keep it for commissioners only, I'm fine with that.
Which car were you advocating that we keep as a commissioner's?
It was the one, the Taurus, I believe, which would be
2005?
Ford Taurus.
the 2007 Ford Taurus, number 089.
It is a 14-year-old car. It is solid. I'd prefer not to drive a new car. I'm pretty hard on it, but it could give us difficulties tomorrow. I don't anticipate that. It's very economical, and I think it's in the best.
In that
interest.
auction, they're probably only worth $1,000 or $1,500, and that's what I would say is if it had a maintenance issue over $500 or $800, then maybe it's time to say goodbye to it. But as long as it continues to run strongly, the tires are good on it and everything, I'd say let's keep going with it. We're self-insured. I mean, it's not like it's going to be an insurance issue or anything like that.
So if the board is inclined to do that, would we want to set up some review, for example, like every 6 months we check in with the roadmaster to see if it's costing us money? Is it time to get rid of it? Something to that effect, or once a year?
I think if a commissioner is driving it all the time, they're going to know the status of the car. And if something happens, they just report that to the board. Hey, look, this engine's knocking and maybe it's time to go. So I just think that's a common sense issue. I don't think we need to put that burden on our roadmaster. I think the people that are driving the car can report. We do have now currently a checklist on all of our clipboards for vehicles that when we check them out, it says basically the status of the car. Are there any dents in the car? Everything running right? Is, anything like that. So that's pretty simple for us to inventory as well. I'd like to keep it as simple as we can and just like I say, if I'm driving the car, Commissioner Boyce, one of us is driving the car, and all of a sudden the transmission's slipping going up a hill, then we just report that to the board.
So question, whoever's driving it, are they still required to fill out the appropriate forms, mileage, et cetera, that we're supposed to, according to the travel policy?
Yes.
Okay. I just think that's important that we follow the rules that we've set up.
Yeah, I think it's important that we still make sure that that it's being used for county business. If there are any personal miles, that's being tracked. If there's any damages, we're aware of it.
Even though it's a junker, we still have to follow protocol.
It goes right along the lines of the 4,700 that I've donated to the county for travel. It was voted to not be reimbursed. So yes, we'll follow through with the requirements to properly record.
And then just one other comment that was made yesterday was that just a reminder about where we park cars, where commissioners are supposed to park, and then where pool cars are supposed to be parked and where employees are supposed to be parked. So with this car and any car that we use, just make sure we get them in the right parking lots so they can keep an eye on them. We did have a problem at one time where people were taking gas out of the pool vehicles, so it's nice to have them all in one spot where we can watch them.
Well, that was me that parked over here. The sheriff had his eye on that car, and I said, no. And that's one the commissioners are going to have available. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, so I have a motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a second.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash,
Aye.
motion carried unanimously.
All right, so that's basically our discussion items. Next is number 6, Director's Report.
I have nothing right now.
All right, Commissioners' updates. Commissioner Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This requires a different mouse. I think you're aware of the certain amount of state senators walked out of the last week of the legislative session, finally came back for last weekend, or the 29th and 30th of June, and the session finished. I just want to give huge compliments and kudos, gratitude to David Brock Smith. I'll be sending out a news, oops, not that one. I'll be sending out a news release. I think that's this one right here. There we go. The efforts that he made for very, very important projects for this county. I won't read it, but you mentioned and have been working on the sediment study. Citizen Barnes has been very tuned into that whole issue. Somebody asked the other day, well, Commissioner Boyce, why do we need $500,000 to study this? We need to dredge it. The money will be first to bring awareness, and it's going to be through a contractual basis, according to the law that was passed here on 2377. But in bringing that attention, it'll much benefit the county and the whole South Coast for future federal funding. So that's a lot of money. It's a good start, and it's, I think, cause, Mr. Chair, for celebration. Portford Cannery in 2014, thanks to former state representative Wayne Krieger, got almost $1 million, and this is an additional amount that came from state funding, primarily for the cannery, and that's one of the most unique ports on the Oregon coast, so we're very happy about this bill. Again, Representative David Brock Smith gets the lion's share of credit for this. I think maybe the biggest one, I don't know, it's hard to prioritize which one of these four are most important to the county. We talked about the sediment study. We talked about the North County and the funding and the help that they need. And then the $2 million for the South County Emergency Room Facility. That just makes it all worthwhile. I know you've worked on that. And again, David Brock Smith, certainly Senator Hurd, helped on this, did a lot of testifying. I made trips to Salem, wrote letters, and I never said it publicly, I really didn't think it was going to pass this session, but It did, and so that is a huge, huge thing for Curry County. South County residents, as you know, have no medical emergency services. Sudden oak death, this will also benefit the county primarily in bringing better federal attention. We're still able, as a task force that was set up originally by Senator Merkley and Representative David Brock Smith, there's been a tremendous amount of work go into trying to understand this disease. We've had tremendous help from Oregon State, all the federal managing agencies, the BLM Forest Service, Oregon Department of Forestry, as you know. And so I think this is going to help us turn the corner. The state has really stepped up to the plate here, and this might be overly optimistic, but it might get as much as 5 or 6, 7 times the amount of federal money to match this, because we cannot let this disease get out of Curry County. And as you also know, it affects 100 different species that we have, from rhododendrons, and of course it affects the native species here, and unfortunately not the Himalaya blackberries or the Scotch broom, you know. David Brock Smith will have a more detailed news release on this later, but it's needless to say, repeating, huge news for Curry County. And we're not done. We're not done. We still have one more huge project that will be more public in the next few months. It has to do with firefighting. And so one more here. I think this is my letter. No, this is a American Forest Resource Council on the Shasta Agnes project. I've put a ton of time in also with the Wild Rivers Coast Forest Collaborative. This is a 10-page document that I couldn't have possibly improved on. They're based in Eugene, have offices in Portland. They spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. advocating for the timber interests, better federal forest management, and of course fire prevention, catastrophic fire prevention. So I'm going to give this, of course, to Staff Jesuit and get this on my portion of the website. And I would really encourage the public to see where we're working here and how we're trying to get additional raw materials for our mills here, and not just our mills, but other mills in Southwest Oregon, and better manage the forest. And I'll just tell you, Mr. Chair, I've spent a lot of time on this, and even though this is a 10-page document, it is exceptional reading, and these are just really people that it doesn't cost our county anything, and they're indirectly representing us and just doing a tremendous job. The other one is Curry County Public Lands Access, that group that you're familiar with, great people. They also coincidentally, is it this one, I think? No. No, we don't want that one. Well, anyway, I won't bring it up, but it's a 10-page. No, that's mine. Oh, excuse me. Good job. Thank you, sir. This is a 10-page document to our new district ranger, who I think is really tuned into rural Oregon and what it means to Curry County to have public lands access, to have a much better organized firefighting program, and the Public Lands Access Group are several of them retired foresters, and so this is also equally good reading, represents Curry County very well, and my letter's only a page and a half, but it basically says, listen, if you want to bring everything in Shasta Agnes into a stewardship contract or stewardship contracts, that doesn't bring money back to our county, and you know, the long term is it benefits through reforestation, and that's good. But if we don't do the stewardship contracts, then we benefit early and late. And then the other aspect my letter represents is no road decommissionings, none. Right. When we're coming to firefighting, we're law enforcement, recreation, future timber harvest.
100%.
And I think that's this one. Yes. So all this will be up. The only other thing I have, Mr. Chair, is the fair announcement and brochure came out, and, they just did a super job. So everybody come to the fair that last weekend in July, the 24th through the 27th, and just kudos to a really good program that they developed. That's all I have. Excuse me, no, there's one more
I
here.
had a question on the fair.
Okay.
I heard you were bull riding in the fair. You were going to ride one of the bulls?
No, they said you were volunteering to do the dunk tank, so I didn't have to.
I don't care.
It'll
raise
I'd
money.
ride a
I'll do
bull.
dunk tank.
I would ride a bull. Probably never lived to brag about it, but all the commissioners receive this, and I want the public to be aware. Also, very good news. And nice to be able to report some good news. Yeah. From Kathy Erickson of Peter DeFazio's office, who is, she's just the tops. Wrong mouse, sorry. Federal Disaster Declaration fact sheet. One sentence, Mr. Chair, today, July 9th. So yesterday, President Donald J. Trump granted a major disaster declaration for the state of Oregon, triggering the release of federal funds to help communities recover from the severe storms, flooding, landslides, and mudslides that occurred, you got it, the last 3 weeks of April. Details, etc., and it just gives all the information. So that's on the screen there, and we'll make sure the public has access to that. And through our Economic Development Department, through our Emergency Management, through the Commissioner's Office, if people want to know, there's several attachments here that can help people understand how they can apply for those benefits. The counties affected are...
Curry's first.
Curry is first. Way to go, yes. And Douglas, Grant, Lynn, Umatilla, and Wheeler counties. So, yeah, we're first on the list. And thank you to Congressman DeFazio, the two senators. They've been working behind the scenes quietly on this, but now it's our responsibility to take advantage and, again, let the public know. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Gold?
I just have one kudos to Dave Fortman, who is our code enforcement officer, and I really appreciate that he's going out and taking care of the ordinances and being consistent in applying those ordinances to all people in our county. So kudos to Dave.
And I would also like to say, on that note, I think there's another position that we may need another employee in the future in this county, because watching his workload, seeing him come in when he comes in.
He looks tired a little bit, doesn't he?
He looks very tired. I watched him yesterday walk out with just a box full of papers, and I agree, Commissioner Gold. He's doing an excellent job in this county, and he could probably use a little help.
I talked to him yesterday, and I think that's a really good point. We've been advocating for a second CEO officer. We may not be there yet, but he could use an assistant. And I know he's talked to Director Smelzer about this, just in doing some of the paperwork. That would be a less expensive employee, but if we could eventually evolve into where we can aid him with another person, maybe we can add it to the new list. No, I'm kidding.
Well, when we created the new community development department, that opened those coordinators and directors up to access the admin staff. So Mr. Fortman can now access some of the admin staff that is downstairs to help him with some of those things that he needs help with. So I'll be working with him. I think coordinating him with Barbara from the surveyor's office would be a good match for him, and that may help him catch up on some of that.
Okay. You're way ahead of us on that.
I am.
Good.
I like the idea of supplementing him administratively, because he knows a whole lot about the law and what needs to be enforced. He needs to be our main person out there. The administrative stuff could be back here.
Absolutely. Is that all you had?
That's it.
Okay. My comments are, firstly, I'm excited that Mr. DeFazio's office did get back with us. It looks like they are taking positive steps. Time will tell, but I am very happy to hear from his office that they are taking positive steps to do something with our river, and the inordinate amount of gravel that has come down this river this year is just. I was out again over the weekend, looking over at Greg's and that old jet boat location over there. There's 8 foot of rock in there. You can't even get up that draw anymore at all. I mean, to see the shoals that are now starting to rear their ugly heads out there, I'm in fear of people just going ripping up this river in another month, 40 knots and hitting those shoals, and somebody getting hurt. So I'm very glad to see that we are starting talks with the appropriate organizations to get permitted to get up this river and hopefully get it cleaned out as far up as we can. Something else I want to comment on is I will be leaving tomorrow morning for NACO. It is a very valuable organization to me. I'm thrilled to be associated with them. I've delivered to Ms. Schmelzer and Summer Matheson several opportunities that they've given to us for grant programs. The Veterans Services Committees that they have that I'm involved in are doing wonderful things to find funding and housing for veterans. And some of the information that's coming out from those organizations, I believe, will benefit Curry County in the very near future. I'm excited to be involved in it and look forward to working farther with them. Other than that, I'd just like to close my comments by saying that some days it's very difficult to come to work in this county, but there are the days that we have that are so uplifting that all the down days are very much worth it. And I'm starting to see some of the fruits of people's labors coming to fruition, and I'm excited for this county for the next 6 months, year, or my 3.5-year tenure that is left to what we can accomplish. I think we finally have a staff that I'm excited to work with, and I would hope the rest of the commissioners are as well. And I'm starting to find a camaraderie here that I'm excited to be involved in. So thank you for that. Commissioner Boyce.
Congressman DeFazio is going to be here on the 27th and 28th during the fair. Maybe we'll get him up in the Ferris wheel and
Maybe we'll put him in the dunk tank.
Yeah, no, we want him to come back.
All right, so at this time, we are going to adjourn our regular meeting and enter into an executive session. And the executive session will be under ORS 192.6602A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. We will come back into session after executive session, so this meeting is in recess. I got to sign this, right?
Was that stealth or svelte?
You would sign that and hand it to JJ. All right, so we are back in regular session here. It is 12 o'clock on July 10th, 2019, and this board is directing Ms. Schmelzer to proceed as directed. With nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.
Did we have to have a motion to that effect, or no, just tell her?
He said that you were proceeding as discussed. The real decision will be
Yeah, when she comes
Okay,
back. Yeah.
good enough.
I think that was clear enough.